Today we're going to talk about this chord. Nowadays, we see this chord as a sub-5 of 5. But in the classical period, this chord was treated using a very different perspective. Composers back then saw this chord as an augmented 6 chord. Although these two points of view are very different, the reason for using this chord was the same back then as it is now, to tonicize the 5 chord in what we call a half cadence. If you're new to MDEX Music, we create music books and apps, piano arrangements, and we discuss improvisation, songwriting, and sometimes we take music theory to strange and uncharted places. So subscribe and hit the bell, and join us for exclusive access to our ever-expanding library of music resources. For those of you studying tonal harmony, I think this will clarify how and why this chord works, and how to solve those challenging tonal harmony worksheets that your teacher always seems to be giving you. And stay till the end of the video, where I'll show you how to get a PDF with plenty of puzzles to solve, as well as the answer key for these puzzles. For jazz musicians, this is just a sub-5 of 5. When you play it on the piano, it's clearly a dominant chord, and there's 3 variations. The German augmented 6th with all of the regular notes, the Italian augmented 6th, which has no 5th, and the crazy French version with a flat 5th. Now, in the classical era, they didn't see this chord as a dominant chord made out of the 1, 3, 5, and the flat 7. Here's how this chord works for the classical mind. First, let me say that this concept was developed from the perspective of being in a minor key. It works perfectly fine in a major key, but the augmented 6th chord was conceived from the perspective of being in minor. So let's say we're in the key of C minor. What's the 5 of C? G. Now, what is the best trick to tonicize that G? Well, if we use the A flat, which is only a half step above G, and an F sharp, which is the leading tone to G, and then we write it down, we have an augmented 6th, which resolves to that G in octaves by contrary motion. Remember this, the augmented 6th chord always resolves to the 5th of the key in octaves, or doubled unison if we're using an inversion of the augmented 6th chord. But an augmented 6th is nothing else than a flat 7. A flat to F sharp is the same as A flat to G flat. If we now add the 3rd of the chord, we get an A flat 7 dominant chord without the 5th. And this C wants to go to the 3rd of the G chord, like this. This is the Italian augmented 6th chord. If we also add the 5th of the chord, E flat, we get the German augmented 6th. And of course, E flat wants to go to a D, the 5th of the G chord. So now we have a beautiful tension release effect. These two notes resolve in contrary motion. By the way, in the Italian 6th, we can double the 3rd of the chord since we don't have the E flat, and then one C moves down to the B, and the other moves up to the D. But what if the E flat is already resolved to the D? That's the French augmented 6th. The D is already present in the augmented 6th chord. It doesn't have to move at all. So now when you see a problem like this, just think like this. The A flat wants to move down a half step, so it goes to G, which must be the 5th of the key. And the G is the 5 in the key of C minor. So we're in the key of C minor. We're going to resolve the G's in octaves. So the top note has to be a leading tone to G, F sharp. And there's your augmented 6th, A flat to F sharp. Then we add the 3rd of the chord, C, which by the way is always the tonic of the key that we're in. And to make it a French augmented 6th, we have to add a D, which is the 5th of the G chord, already resolved in the chord. This D is actually the flat 5 of our A flat chord. So once you understand the purpose of this chord and how it works, it's very easy to solve this problem. Let's do another one. This E flat will move down to D. D is the 5 in our key. Then we're in the key of G minor. And the other D, an octave above, should be approached by its leading tone, C sharp. Then we add the 3rd of the chord, which is our tonic. And since it says that it's an Italian augmented 6, we just double it. I'm going to go ahead and put it up here then. Now, one G moves down to F sharp, and the other moves up to A. A nice D chord. Let's do a German augmented sixth. So F has to move down to E, right? Then E is the 5 of our key, which means we're in A minor. Now we have to add the leading tone to E, which is D sharp. Now we add the third, A, and the fifth, C. So this chord is the German augmented sixth in the key of A minor. And look, it's an F7. It just looks weird when we write it down like this. And of course, it resolves to an E chord like this. And remember, this is just a substitute of the 5 of 5 on the opposite side of our circle. This German augmented sixth in the key of A minor is just an F7. That is replacing the B7, the 5 of E. I think it's super interesting how harmony has its roots in counterpoint. Nowadays, we would never write an F7 chord like this. But should we? Let us know in the comments down below what you think, and if you have other topics that you want us to explore as well. So before I let you guys go, let me say that there's a very interesting path very often used by classical composers, in which instead of going directly to the 5 chord, they would go this way first to the 1-6-4, like in Rossini's William Tell Overture. So that's it for today. Hopefully we were able to shed some light on the augmented sixth chord for you. All of our members are going to get a PDF that accompanies today's video. If you'd like to become a member, go ahead and click on the join button or the link down below. Also check out our website mdex.com for all sorts of awesome music related stuff. YouTube seems to think you're going to like these videos here, so go ahead and stick around and check those out as well. Thanks again for watching. We'll catch you next time.